The great halls of Nexus Prime had never seen such tension. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center of the circular chamber, looking up at hundreds of alien faces staring down at her. Each species sat in their designated sections, representing thousands of years of galactic civilization. The air felt heavy with judgment. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared above her head, showing blue oceans and green continents. Cities sparkled like jewels in the darkness of space. The presentation showed humanity's greatest achievements over the past century. Honored council members, Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. Humanity comes before you today seeking membership in this great alliance. We offer our diversity, our innovation, and our determination to contribute to galactic peace and prosperity. The hologram shifted to show human art, music, and literature. Scientists working in laboratories, engineers building faster than light engines, doctors healing patients from dozens of different worlds, children from every continent of Earth playing together in perfect harmony. In just 200 years, we have eliminated poverty on our world, Sarah continued. We have cured diseases that once killed millions. We have learned to live together despite our differences. We have reached for the stars with hope in our hearts. But the faces looking down at her showed no warmth. The Ethon delegation sat like living statues, their pale blue skin glowing faintly in the chamber's lights. Their large black eyes never blinked as they watched the presentation. The Ethon were telepaths, able to read minds and share thoughts instantly across vast distances. They considered themselves the most evolved species in the galaxy. To their left sat the Krex Empire's representatives. These warrior aliens stood 8 feet tall, covered in thick armor-like skin. Their red eyes burned with intelligence and barely controlled aggression. The Krex had conquered half the galaxy through superior military might before joining the Council. They respected only strength and tradition. The ancient Voidborn occupied the highest seats in the chamber. These beings were so old that no one remembered their true origins. They appeared as shifting shadows in the shape of tall humanoids, their faces hidden behind masks of pure energy. The Voidborn claimed to have witnessed the birth of the first stars. They had guided the galaxy's development for millions of years. Sarah's presentation continued for another hour. She showed Earth's scientific breakthroughs, their peaceful first contact protocols, and their successful colonies on 12 different worlds. She spoke of humanity's dreams of joining the galactic community as equals and partners. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. The weight of thousands of years of tradition pressed down on the small human delegation. Sarah waited, her heart pounding as the council prepared to vote. The Ethon Prime speaker rose first. His voice echoed in every mind present, cold and emotionless. The Ethon have deliberated. This species shows promise, but their minds are chaotic. Their thoughts jump without pattern or reason. They feel too much, think too little. In times of crisis, they act without proper consideration. Such instability threatens galactic order. A Krex general stood next, his armor clanking as he moved. The Krex Empire finds humanity lacking in martial tradition. They have known war for only centuries, not millennia. Their military doctrine changes constantly. They show no respect for the proven ways of battle. Warriors who cannot follow established patterns cannot be trusted in times of conflict. Finally, the eldest Voidborn representative spoke, his voice like the whisper of solar wind across empty space. The Voidborn have observed this species for mere moments in cosmic time. They have existed for less than 10 million years. Their civilizations rise and fall like waves on a shore. They have not proven their ability to maintain stability across the eons. They are children playing with forces they do not understand. Other species began to voice their concerns. The peaceful Meridians worried about human aggression. The logical synthesis found human emotions too unpredictable. The ancient builders claimed humanity lacked proper respect for established order. Sarah felt her chest tighten as she listened to the criticisms. Every achievement humanity was proud of became a weakness in the Council's eyes. Their adaptability was called instability. Their passion was labeled as dangerous emotion. Their rapid progress was seen as reckless haste. The Ethon Prime speaker rose again for the final judgment. His mental voice reached every corner of the chamber, carrying the weight of absolute authority. The Galactic Council has voted. By a margin of 437 to 63, humanity's application for membership is denied. The reasons are as follows. First, their species has not demonstrated sufficient stability over time. Second, their emotional responses create unpredictable behavior patterns that threaten orderly governance. Third, their rapid technological advancement suggests reckless disregard for proper development protocols. Fourth, their brief existence provides insufficient evidence of long-term reliability. The words hit Sarah like physical blows. Around her, the other human delegates stood frozen in shock. 200 years of preparation, decades of peaceful contact, all of it meant nothing to these ancient civilizations. Furthermore, the Prime Speaker continued, humanity will be restricted from galactic trade routes and technological exchanges until such time as they demonstrate proper maturity. This restriction will remain in place for a minimum of 500 Earth years, subject to review by future councils. Sarah found her voice at last. She looked up at the towering aliens surrounding her and spoke with quiet dignity. Honored Council, we accept your decision with disappointment but not with despair. You judge us by standards that favor age over innovation, tradition over adaptation. You see our emotions as weakness, but they are the source of our greatest strengths. She paused, looking directly at each delegation in turn. You may deny us today, but remember this moment. Remember it when the galaxy faces a threat that cannot be solved by ancient wisdom or traditional methods. Remember it when you need minds that can think in new ways, hearts that can feel hope in the darkest hours, and spirits that refuse to surrender when all seems lost. The Prime Speaker's mental voice carried a hint of irritation. Humanity's tendency toward dramatic speeches serves as further evidence of their emotional instability. The Council's decision is final. Sarah nodded once, then turned to face her delegation. We're going home, she said simply. We're going home to build a future these elders cannot imagine. The human delegation walked out of the chamber with their heads held high. Behind them, the great species of the galaxy continued their ancient debates about trade agreements and territorial disputes. They had dismissed humanity as too young, too emotional, too unpredictable for their ordered society. As the Earth ship lifted off from Nexus Prime, Sarah looked back at the gleaming towers of the galactic capital. 500 years, she murmured to her aide. They want us to wait 500 years to prove ourselves worthy of their club. Her aide, a young man named David Park, managed a bitter smile. What do we do now, Ambassador? Sarah turned away from the viewport and straightened her shoulders. We do what humans have always done when others underestimate us, David. We prove them wrong. We build something better than what they have. And when they come asking for our help, we'll be ready. The ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying its disappointed but determined passengers back to Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued its ancient routines, confident in their decision to exclude the young, chaotic species from their orderly civilization. None of them imagined that this rejection would become the greatest mistake in galactic history. None of them could foresee that the very qualities they condemned in humanity would one day save them all from destruction. The seeds of that salvation were already taking root in human minds, growing stronger with each light year that carried them away from the council that had rejected them. 5 years had passed since the rejection at Nexus Prime, and Earth looked nothing like the council had expected. The alien elders had assumed humanity would collapse under the weight of galactic isolation. They thought humans would beg for readmission within a decade. Instead, they had created something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching cargo ships arrive from the outer colonies. Each ship bore the blue and green colors of Earth, but their designs were unlike anything in galactic databases. Sleek hulls curved in impossible ways. Engines glowed with new types of energy, and their very presence seemed to bend space around them. Another shipment from Titan Base, reported Captain James Wu, joining Elena at the massive viewport. Their quantum-fold engines are running at 130% of theoretical maximum efficiency. The Council's best ships can't match our slowest cargo haulers now. Elena smiled, remembering the early days after the rejection. Earth's governments had united like never before, pouring resources into a single goal, proving the Council wrong. Without access to alien technology, human scientists had been forced to innovate. The results exceeded everyone's wildest dreams. What about the Harmony Drive tests? Elena asked. The Harmony Drive was humanity's greatest breakthrough, an engine that could operate in cosmic phenomena that destroyed conventional ships. While alien vessels avoided black holes, neutron stars, and solar storms, Human ships danced through them like they were gentle breezes. Better than expected, James replied, pulling up a holographic display. The new Tokyo successfully completed a circuit around Proxima Centauri's solar flares. The energy readings were off the charts, but the ship suffered no damage. We're essentially immune to stellar radiation now. Through the viewport, Elena could see the lights of human colonies dotting the asteroid belt. What had once been barren rocks were now thriving cities. Humanity had learned to live in places other species considered uninhabitable. Gas giant atmospheres became floating cities. Asteroid fields became mining centers and manufacturing hubs. Even the edge of Sol's gravity well, where space itself grew thin, hosted human research stations. A communication alert chimed, and Elena activated the display. The face of Admiral Torres appeared, his weathered features showing both exhaustion and excitement. "Elena, we've got visitors," he announced. 3 ships just jumped into the outer system. They're broadcasting Council identification codes, but they're not using official channels. Elena's eyebrows rose. "Council ships here? That's a violation of their own isolation order." "That's what makes it interesting," Torres continued. "They're requesting a meeting with civilian leadership, not military." "And Elena? They're not flying Council colors. These are independent traders using alien technology." Within hours, Elena found herself in Earth's primary spaceport, waiting for the mysterious visitors. The 3 ships that landed were clearly of galactic design, but they showed signs of human modification. Extra armor plating, improved engines, and weapon systems that didn't match any Council specifications. The airlock opened with a hiss, and 3 figures emerged. The first was a Meridian, one of the galaxy's most peaceful species. Her name was Zara Keth, and she moved with the grace typical of her people. Behind her came a synthesis unit, its mechanical body humming with quiet efficiency. The third visitor surprised Elena most of all, a young Ethan whose mental barriers were so strong that even other telepaths couldn't read his thoughts. "Dr. Vasquez," Zara said, her voice carrying the musical tones of her species. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us. I know this visit violates Council protocols." Elena gestured for them to follow her into the station's meeting room. "Council protocols that banned us from galactic civilization, you mean? I think we can overlook the technicalities. What brings you to our forbidden corner of space?" Zara exchanged glances with her companions before answering. "Curiosity, mostly. And admiration. The galaxy is talking about you, Dr. Vasquez. Not officially, of course. The Council maintains that humanity doesn't exist. But traders whisper stories. Independent colonies share rumors. And some of us have been watching." The synthesis unit spoke next, its voice carrying perfect mathematical precision. "Your technological advancement violates several established theorems. According to galactic science, your quantum fold engines should not function. Your harmony drives operate outside known physics. Your ships survive in environments that destroy matter itself." Elena couldn't help smiling. "When you're cut off from everyone else's solutions, you have to find your own. We couldn't copy alien technology, so we had to understand the universe for ourselves." The young Ethan finally spoke, his mental voice carefully controlled. "My name is Kelvin Tor. I'm what my people call mind-defo, unable to use telepathy properly. The Council considers me defective, but that same defect allows me to think thoughts that normal Ethan cannot imagine, and I have been imagining a great deal about humanity." He activated a holographic display that showed star charts Elena had never seen before. "The galaxy is larger than the Council admits. There are regions they dare not explore, phenomena they cannot explain, and threats they refuse to acknowledge. But you humans, you go everywhere. You build homes in impossible places. You turn every obstacle into an opportunity." Zara leaned forward, her expression growing serious. "Dr. Vasquez, we need to ask you something important. If the galaxy faced a threat that traditional methods couldn't handle, would humanity help? Even after the Council rejected you?" Elena studied the 3 aliens carefully. Something in their expressions suggested this wasn't a hypothetical question. "What kind of threat?" "The kind that comes from outside," Kelvin said quietly. "The kind that doesn't follow galactic rules or respect ancient traditions. The kind that the Council's ordered minds cannot comprehend or combat." Before Elena could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Admiral Torres's voice echoed over the communication system. "All personnel to alert stations. We have unknown contacts entering the system. Multiple ships, unknown configuration, not responding to hails. Through the meeting room's viewport, Elena could see bright flashes of light in the outer system. Ships were exploding, but not from weapons fire. Something was consuming them, breaking them down into component atoms and converting the matter into more of itself. Zara's face went pale. "They're here. The devourers found us." Elena watched in horror as the unknown entities moved through space like a living tide. They consumed everything in their path, asteroids, ships, even the radiation from stars themselves. Whatever these devourers were, they represented a threat unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. "How long do we have?" Elena asked. The synthesis unit ran calculations faster than any human computer. At their current rate of consumption and reproduction, they will reach Earth's orbit in 17 hours and 34 minutes. Elena looked at her alien visitors, then at the approaching doom outside. Humanity had spent 5 years proving they belonged in the galaxy. Now it seemed the galaxy itself might not survive to acknowledge that fact. "Admiral Torres," she called over the communication system, "prepare all defenses and evacuate the civilian populations, and send a message to every human colony and research station. Tell them we're about to face the ultimate test." Outside, the devourers continued their advance, consuming everything in their path with mechanical efficiency. They had already destroyed a dozen galactic civilizations. Earth would be just another meal unless humanity could accomplish what no other species had managed: finding a way to stop the unstoppable. Elena turned back to her visitors. "If you wanted to see what humans do when faced with impossible odds, Zara, I think you're about to get a demonstration." The first galactic system fell on a Tuesday. The Helix research station monitoring deep space sensors watched in disbelief as the Vela colony simply vanished from all communications. One moment, 40 million Kalthak were going about their daily lives on 7 different worlds. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space where those worlds had been. High Admiral Drac Corvin of the Krex Empire studied the reports from his flagship's command center. His red eyes burned with frustration as he tried to understand what had destroyed an entire star system in less than 6 hours. The Kalthak had sent distress signals describing massive black objects that consumed everything they touched. But the reports made no sense. "Show me the sensor readings again," Corvin commanded his tactical officer. The holographic display showed the final moments of the Vela system. Dark shapes moved between the planets like living shadows, but they weren't ships. They had no engines, no weapons that sensor could detect, no life signs that registered on any scanner. Yet everything they touched simply ceased to exist. "The objects appear to be converting matter directly into more of themselves," reported the Krex science officer. "They consume planets, stars, even space debris, and use the absorbed matter to create additional units." Their numbers grew from 12 to over 1,000 during the attack. Corvin's massive fists clenched. "Impossible. No weapon can convert an entire planet into whatever those things are." But the evidence was undeniable. The Vela system now contained nothing but a strange dark cloud that pulsed with malevolent energy. The devourers, as the few survivors had named them, had stripped away everything down to individual atoms and rebuilt it into their own twisted forms. Across the galaxy, the Ethon Collective was experiencing its own nightmare. Their telepathic network, which had connected billions of minds across thousands of worlds, was being systematically shattered. The devourers didn't just consume matter, they absorbed and corrupted the psychic energy the Ethon used to communicate. Prime Speaker Vel Thara felt the network shrieking as entire sectors went dark. The minds of her people, once united in perfect harmony, were being torn away one by one. Each time the devourers consumed an Ethon world, their alien consciousness infected the telepathic web with chaotic thoughts that no Ethon mind could process. "The Outer Rim colonies are gone," reported her aide, his mental voice trembling with terror. "The devourers reached Ethon Prime Sector. We've lost contact with over 200 worlds." Velthara tried to maintain her composure, but even her disciplined mind couldn't ignore the horror they faced. The Ethon had spent millions of years developing their telepathic abilities, believing they represented the next step in evolution. Now that same evolution was being used against them by creatures that seemed to exist outside the normal laws of reality. "What do our greatest minds suggest?" she asked. "They cannot understand the enemy," came the reply. "The devourers think in patterns that our logic cannot follow. Their consciousness is like a virus infecting everything it touches with alien thoughts. Our telepaths who try to study them go insane within minutes." The situation was no better for the ancient Voidborn. These beings, who had witnessed the birth of galaxies and the death of stars, found themselves facing something beyond their vast experience. The devourers consumed not just matter and energy, but the very concepts of space and time around them. Elder Nyx, eldest of the Voidborn Council, studied reports from their most distant outposts. His energy form flickered with uncertainty as he processed information that challenged everything they knew about the universe. "The enemy appears to operate outside our dimensional framework," he announced to the emergency council session. "They consume reality itself, leaving behind regions where normal physics no longer apply. Our ships that enter these areas simply cease to exist, not destroyed, but unmade." Another Voidborn elder, her form shimmering with distress, added her observations. "I have lived for 60 million years. I have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. But these devourers are not from our universe. They follow laws of existence that predate the current cosmic order." The reports continued to pour in from across the galaxy. The peaceful Meridian Collective watched helplessly as their beautiful garden worlds were stripped bare and converted into pulsing organic machinery. The logical synthesis units found their advanced computers overloaded, trying to process devourer behavior patterns that violated every known principle of artificial intelligence. Within 3 weeks, over 50 star systems had fallen. The devourers moved through space like a living plague, consuming everything in their path and growing stronger with each meal. Their numbers increased exponentially, and their rate of advance accelerated as they learned to process matter more efficiently. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session on Nexus Prime. For the first time in recorded history, the ancient chambers echoed with genuine panic. Representatives from dozens of species shared the same terrible realization. Their traditional weapons and tactics were completely useless against this enemy. High Admiral Corvin stood before the assembly, his proud warrior bearing broken by weeks of devastating defeats. "The Krex Empire has thrown our greatest fleets against these creatures. Our plasma cannons have no effect. Our nuclear missiles are absorbed and converted into more devourers. Our most powerful dreadnoughts last less than 10 minutes in combat." Prime Speaker Velthara added her own grim report. "The Ethon Collective has attempted to coordinate galactic defenses through our telepathic network. But the devourers corrupt our mental connections. Our greatest advantage has become our greatest weakness." Elder Nyx spoke last, his ancient voice heavy with defeat. "The Voidborn have deployed weapons that once destroyed entire star systems. The devourers consume the energy and use it to accelerate their reproduction. Every attack we make only makes them stronger." Around the chamber, other species shared similar stories of failure. The Builder Consortium's automated defense platforms were converted into devourer factories. The Trader Guild's fastest ships couldn't outrun the expanding threat. The Scholar Collective's greatest minds couldn't develop effective countermeasures. As the reports continued, a terrible truth became clear to everyone present. The galaxy's greatest civilizations, with their ancient wisdom and advanced technology, were helpless against this enemy. The ordered minds that had guided galactic civilization for millions of years simply couldn't comprehend a threat that operated outside all known parameters. In the stunned silence that followed the final report, a young Meridian delegate named Zara Keth stood to speak. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but in the vast chamber every word carried clearly. "There is one option we haven't considered," she said. "One species that might think differently enough to find a solution we cannot see." The chamber erupted in angry voices. "The humans are too primitive," shouted a Krex general. "They lack the experience to face such a threat," declared an Ethon philosopher. "We rejected them for good reason," insisted a Voidborn elder, but Zara continued speaking, her words cutting through the chaos. "We rejected them because their minds work differently than ours. Because they are chaotic where we are ordered. Because they think with emotion where we think with logic. Because they see possibilities where we see only established facts." She looked around the chamber at the faces of the galaxy's supposedly superior civilizations. "Perhaps it's time to admit that our way of thinking isn't the only way. Perhaps the very qualities we condemned in humanity are exactly what we need to survive." The suggestion was met with outraged protests, but underneath the anger, a desperate hope began to grow. The galaxy's greatest minds had failed. Their most powerful weapons were useless. Their ancient wisdom provided no answers. Maybe it was time to try something completely different. Maybe it was time to ask for help from the young, chaotic, emotional species they had rejected. Maybe it was time to admit that the Council had made a terrible mistake. Outside the chambers of Nexus Prime, the Devourers continued their advance, consuming star system after star system with relentless efficiency. Time was running out for the galaxy, and the only potential salvation lay with the species they had deemed unworthy of membership in their exclusive club. The emergency session on Nexus Prime had been going for 18 hours without break. Outside the Great Chambers, refugee ships continued to arrive carrying survivors from the latest Devourer attacks. Inside, the greatest minds in the galaxy argued about humanity while their civilization crumbled around them. Prime Speaker Velthera stood rigid at her podium, her telepathic voice cutting through the chaos of debate. The Ethon Collective will not bow before primitive minds that cannot even achieve basic telepathic communication. We have guided this galaxy for 3 million years. We will not abandon our responsibility now. High Admiral Corvin slammed his armored fist on his delegation's table. The Krex Empire agrees. These humans have existed for mere moments in galactic time. They lack the warrior tradition necessary to face this threat. Their military doctrine changes like shifting sand. How can we trust them with our survival? But their protests were growing weaker with each passing hour. Reports continued to stream in from the front lines, each one worse than the last. The Devourers had consumed 70 star systems now, and their rate of expansion was accelerating. The core worlds would be under attack within days. Elder Nick spoke from his place among the Voidborn delegation, his energy form flickering with exhaustion. Perhaps we must consider alternatives we would normally reject. The current approach is clearly insufficient. Zara Keth seized the moment of hesitation. She stood at the central podium, her small frame dwarfed by the massive chamber but her voice carrying the weight of desperation. While we debate, entire civilizations are dying. The Aldebaran colonies fell 6 hours ago. The Centauri Federation is under attack as we speak. How many more must die before we admit that our pride is less important than our survival? A synthesis unit computed the latest tactical projections and announced them with mechanical precision. At current rates of loss, galactic civilization will cease to exist in 47 days, 12 hours, and 16 minutes. The probability of developing effective countermeasures using traditional methods is 0.0003%. The chamber fell silent as the full weight of those numbers settled over the delegates. 47 days until the end of everything their civilizations had built over millions of years. Zara looked around at the faces surrounding her, seeing fear behind the masks of pride and tradition. I propose a secret mission to the Sol system. Not an official council delegation, but a small group of volunteers. We go to humanity not as the mighty Galactic Council, but as desperate survivors seeking help. The protest that erupted was deafening, but Zara continued. If the humans refuse us, we lose nothing we won't lose anyway. If they help us, we might save the galaxy. The mathematics are simple. Elder Nix's form brightened slightly. A logical approach. Unofficial contact maintains plausible deniability while exploring all available options. High Admiral Corvin growled his frustration. This is madness. The humans were judged unworthy for specific reasons. Their chaotic thinking patterns, their emotional decision-making, their lack of proper military discipline are exactly what we need, Zara interrupted. Admiral, our ordered thinking has failed. Our logical approach has produced no solutions. Our military discipline has resulted in nothing but defeats. Perhaps chaos is what we need now. The debate continued for another 6 hours, but the outcome was inevitable. As more systems fell to the Devourers and refugee ships packed the space around Nexus Prime, even the proudest species began to accept the terrible truth. Their traditional methods had failed completely. The final vote was closer than anyone expected. 312 in favor of contact, 288 against. The mission would proceed, but it would be unofficial, deniable, and composed of volunteers who risked exile from their own civilizations. 3 days later, a small ship departed from an outer system research station, its destination hidden from all official records. Aboard were Zara Keth of the Meridian Collective, Kelvin Tor the Mind-Deaf Ethon, and a synthesis unit designated Prime, Algorithm 7. They carried with them the hopes of a dying galaxy and the fears of species too proud to admit their limitations. The journey to Sol took 6 days through backchannel, hyperspace routes that avoided all council monitoring stations. As they traveled, the three unlikely ambassadors watched the Devourer advance continue on stolen sensor feeds. The enemy had consumed the Rigel system while they flew through hyperspace. The Vega colonies went dark just as they reached Earth's outer planets. Dr. Elena Vasquez met them at Luna Station, her face showing the strain of 5 years spent developing humanity's defenses in isolation. The meeting room where they gathered overlooked Earth itself, the blue and green planet that the Council had deemed unworthy of galactic membership. Dr. Vasquez, Zara began, "We come to you not as representatives of the Council that rejected humanity, but as individuals facing extinction. The galaxy is dying and we need help." Elena studied the three aliens carefully. She had followed the reports of the Devourer advance through human intelligence networks, watching as the species that had rejected humanity faced destruction. Part of her felt satisfaction at seeing their pride brought low, but a larger part felt only sorrow for the billions of innocent lives being lost. "What kind of help?" Elena asked. Kelvin Tor activated a holographic display showing the current tactical situation. "The Devourers consume everything we throw at them. Our weapons feed their growth. Our strategies are predictable and easily countered. Our greatest minds cannot understand how they think." Prime Algorithm 7 added its analysis. "Human tactical patterns differ significantly from galactic norms. Your species demonstrates adaptive thinking that follows no established protocols. This unpredictability might prove effective against an enemy that adapts to logical responses." Elena looked out at Earth, thinking of the 5 years humanity had spent building their defenses in isolation. They had developed weapons and tactics the galaxy had never seen, driven by the burning need to prove their worth to the species that had rejected them. "What are you offering in return?" she asked. Zara's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Everything. Full membership in the Galactic Council, access to all our technology and knowledge, reparations for the years of isolation, recognition as a senior species with voting rights equal to the Ethan, Krex, and Voidborn. And if we refuse, then the galaxy dies," Kelvin said simply, "and humanity inherits an empty universe filled with nothing but devourers." Elena was quiet for several minutes, watching Earth turn slowly beneath them. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of decision. "I'll need to discuss this with our leadership, but I can tell you now that humanity has never turned away from those who need help, even those who once turned away from us." She turned back to face the three aliens. "However, if we do this, it will be on our terms. Human ships, human tactics, human command structure. No interference from Council species who think they know better. And Admiral Torres will have overall command of any joint operations." The aliens exchanged glances. For species accustomed to leading galactic affairs, accepting human leadership was almost unthinkable, but the alternative was extinction. "Agreed," Zara said after a moment. "When can you begin?" Elena smiled for the first time since the meeting began. "We've been preparing for 5 years to prove ourselves worthy of the galaxy. I think it's time to show you what humanity can do when we're fighting for something we believe in." Outside the viewport, Earth continued its ancient rotation, unaware that its children were about to inherit the responsibility for saving a galaxy that had once rejected them. The irony was not lost on any of them. The species deemed too chaotic and emotional for galactic civilization was now civilization's only hope for survival. The war against the Devourers was about to take a very different turn. Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's newest flagship, watching the largest fleet in galactic history assemble around him. Ships from dozens of species floated in formation, their crews united by desperation, and the faint hope that these strange humans might somehow accomplish what their own civilizations could not. The past month had been a whirlwind of preparation. Human engineers had worked around the clock to modify alien ships with human technology. Harmony drives were installed on Krex dreadnoughts, allowing them to operate in the chaotic energy fields the Devourers created. Quantum fold engines were fitted to Ethon vessels, giving them escape routes that conventional hyperspace could not provide. Most importantly, human tactical officers had been assigned to every ship in the fleet. The aliens' ordered minds followed predictable patterns that the Devourers had already learned to counter. Human unpredictability was their only advantage against an enemy that adapted to everything else. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood beside Torres, her face calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Her research team had spent weeks studying captured devourer fragments, trying to understand how the enemy thought and adapted. What they discovered had changed everything. "Admiral," reported Captain Sarah Chen, now serving as Torres's tactical coordinator. "All ships report ready. The alien crews are nervous about our battle plans." Torres smiled grimly. He could understand their concern. The human battle plan violated every principle of galactic military doctrine. Instead of maintaining safe distances and using long-range weapons, they would charge directly into the devourer swarms. Instead of coordinated formations, individual ship captains would be free to improvise their own tactics. Instead of following established protocols, they would rely on instinct and emotion. "Patch me through to the fleet," Torres commanded. His image appeared on communication screens throughout the massive fleet. Ethan telepaths, Krex warriors, voidborn ancients, and dozens of other species looked at the human admiral who would either save them or lead them to glorious destruction. "People of the galaxy," Torres began, his voice carrying clearly across the quantum channels. "Today we face an enemy that has consumed 100 star systems and billions of lives. The devourers think they understand us. They've studied our tactics, learned our patterns, adapted to our weapons. They expect us to behave like rational, orderly civilizations." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "They're about to learn that humans are anything but rational when we're fighting for our homes and our friends. Today we don't fight like Ethan or Krex or Voidborn. Today we fight like humans. And humans, my friends, have never learned how to surrender." The fleet jumped to hyperspace in a perfectly coordinated maneuver, but that coordination would be the last orderly thing they did. Their destination was the Centauri system, where the devourers had established a massive processing center to convert captured matter into new units. When they emerged from hyperspace, the sight that greeted them defied comprehension. The Centauri system had been completely transformed. Planets hung in space like giant mechanical organs, pulsing with alien energy as they processed matter into new devourers. Millions of the dark entities swarmed through space in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "All ships," Torres announced, "execute Plan Chaos." What followed was the most unconventional battle in galactic history. Instead of maintaining formation, human-led ships scattered in every direction, each captain following their own instincts about where to strike. Krex dreadnoughts dove directly into devourer swarms, their crews screaming ancient war cries as they fired at point-blank range. Ethan vessels danced through the enemy formations, their telepathic pilots guided by human emotions rather than logical calculation. The devourers tried to adapt to the attack patterns, but there were no patterns to adapt to. Every ship fought differently. Every captain made decisions based on gut feelings rather than tactical doctrine. The enemy's sophisticated adaptation algorithms crashed trying to process the sheer randomness of human-inspired combat. Dr. Vasquez watched from the Defiance's sensor station as her theories proved correct. "Admiral, the Devourer's response time is increasing. They're having trouble processing our tactical choices because we're not making tactical choices. We're just fighting." Torres nodded, then opened a channel to all human pilots in the fleet. "This is where we show them what humanity really means. Remember why we're here. Remember what we're fighting for. Don't think I'll feel." Lieutenant David Park, now commanding a modified Meridian corvette, felt tears streaming down his face as he piloted his ship through a cloud of devourers. His crew of alien volunteers watched in amazement as their human commander somehow anticipated enemy movements through pure intuition, dodging attacks that their sensors couldn't even detect. On the bridge of a synthesis dreadnought, Commander Liu Wei screamed in fury as devourers destroyed a hospital ship full of refugees. His alien crew had never seen such raw emotion, but they found themselves inspired by it, fighting with a passion their logical minds had never understood. The breakthrough came when Captain Elena Rodriguez, commanding a joint human voidborn strike team, made a decision that any rational commander would have considered suicide. Instead of retreating when her ship was overwhelmed, she ordered a direct ramming attack on the largest devourer cluster. "Tell my family I love them," she transmitted to the fleet, then cut her engines and let gravity carry her ship directly into the enemy formation. But instead of simply absorbing her ship like they had countless others, the devourers hesitated. The act of deliberate self-sacrifice was so alien to their programming that their adaptation systems couldn't process it. In that moment of confusion, Rodriguez activated humanity's secret weapon. "Chaos bombs away," she announced calmly. Seconds before her ship was consumed, the chaos bombs were Dr. Vasquez's masterpiece, weapons that created localized reality distortions based on quantum uncertainty principles. They didn't explode in any conventional sense. Instead, they made small regions of space completely unpredictable, where the laws of physics themselves became chaotic. The devourers tried to process the distortions, but chaos cannot be analyzed or adapted to. Their hive mind, which had efficiently consumed 100 star systems, shattered like glass hitting concrete. Millions of devourers simply stopped functioning, their shared consciousness overloaded by encounters with true randomness. The battle turned in that instant. Across the Centauri system, devourer formations began to collapse as their coordination failed. Human-led ships pressed their advantage, using unconventional tactics to destroy enemies that had seemed invincible just hours before. Admiral Torres watched the enemy retreat with a mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. They had won the first major victory against the devourers, but the cost had been enormous. Hundreds of ships destroyed, thousands of lives lost, including Captain Rodriguez and her crew. "Admiral," reported Dr. Vasquez, "we are receiving transmissions from devourer-occupied systems. Their hive mind is fragmenting. The chaos effect is spreading through their entire network. Across the galaxy, the news of humanity's victory spread faster than light-speed communications. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as reports came in of devourer forces simply shutting down in system after system. The unstoppable enemy that had consumed 100 worlds was retreating in chaos and confusion. Prime Speaker Velthera stood before the emergency assembly, her telepathic voice carrying a mixture of amazement and humility. "The humans have accomplished what we could not. Their chaotic thinking has broken the enemy that our order could not touch. Perhaps we were wrong about more than just their worthiness for membership." High Admiral Corvin, his proud warrior spirit humbled by what he had witnessed, added his own admission. "The human Admiral Torres has shown us that there are kinds of courage we never understood. Their pilots fought not with discipline but with love, not with logic but with hope, and somehow that made all the difference." Elder Nick spoke last, his ancient voice carrying the weight of eons. "In my 60 million years of existence, I have learned that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any single perspective can encompass. Today, the youngest species in the galaxy taught the oldest that wisdom comes in many forms." 6 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once again in the great chambers of Nexus Prime. But this time, she was not pleading for humanity's admission to the Galactic Council. She was being sworn in as the Council's first Secretary General of Human Affairs, a position created specifically to ensure that humanity's unique perspective would never again be dismissed. The chambers themselves had been rebuilt to accommodate human emotional needs alongside alien logical requirements. Where once there had been cold, ordered spaces designed for telepathic communion and perfect rational debate, now there were areas for private consultation, emotional expression, and the kind of chaotic brainstorming that had saved the galaxy. Children from dozens of species played together in the Council's public spaces, human youngsters teaching alien friends games that had no rules, while alien children showed humans puzzles that had no solutions.